would do in this room, I want you to organize your folks, right? Elections absolutely do have consequences. Folks in the African American community, we voted 92% against this bullshit. We need everyone to get on the phone in Iowa and Ohio. I'll tell you what I'm about to do with redistricting to actually try to stop the Trump presidency. But as a new member, I'm very, very clear that I am in this fight with all that I have to stop really what I believe is the Klan from continuing to wreak havoc on this nation. Because you will have many members who were born into a very different situation that I wasn't. So the way that I approach the work is as a disabled Black woman with a baby. So I want to tell you a little bit about who I am. You know, there's commercials when you're running, and then there's a real person. I grew up and I was born and raised in San Francisco. My family came from Louisiana and Arkansas, in the 1940s here. Leaving Jim Crow, they found Jim Crow here as well. The Simon family is from Lateefah, Louisiana, and my father's dad was a small business owner. It really brought jazz to San Francisco and the film art to West Oakland. So I come from a family of culture keepers. My parents struggled with addiction growing up, and I myself struggled in school. I was in and out of the juvenile justice system. I became a teen mom. My daughter is 29 now. She's married. I rent. She owns a house. I'm like kind of progressive in Albany. She's a prosecutor. So there's that one very interesting conversations over dinner. Being a young mother, putting my kid through undergrad and law school, I learned a lot. I met my husband when my daughter was 12. I lost my husband almost 10 years ago to cancer after we got married and had a child. My youngest daughter is 14. I am not a single parent, I'm an only parent. Unlike any other member of the U.S. House of Representatives, I brought my child to live. Of course, that's my baby. I'm an only parent to live with me in this new process. I'm the only parent of a school-age child, a single parent in the house. I don't believe that politicians are gods or perfect, but I think we represent as best as we can, and I actually want to be excellent for you all, not just with my own lived experience, but the work that I've done for 30 years, working for kids who were literally in jails and prisons, and working with young people on the streets, making sure that I was a voice as a straight, cis Black woman who was also clear about my commitment to queer children and trans children, that I was committed to elderly folks and disabled folks as I too was born with congenital blindness. I'm trying out a new format instead of just, I've been an organizer for a long time, so go up these town halls and say, we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this. This is a different time than even just, I would say, 5 weeks ago. The world as we've known it has changed, and you all actually want to hear what's happening in the dome, and you want to hear what I'm doing. I actually want to frame this time as I see it. You all may remember that beautiful talk that King gave on the Knock at Midnight. I spent much of my undergrad and graduate career studying the words of King as a nonviolent agitator. In a Knock at Midnight, he asked a question, as did those of movement history. You also know Grace Lee Boggs asked a question, what time is it? Or what time is it on the clock of the world? Well, I will tell you, being in that dome every single day, I'll tell you it's midnight. It's absolutely midnight. And I'm gonna phrase that, it's not just an analogy. When we talk about the 250 years of this experiment of a republic, we are in fact in a very precarious moment. You all know that. But that is how I am thinking about the urgency of how we must move. The Republican bill, which many have called the Big Beautiful or the Big Cool bill. I'm going to talk about that very briefly so you actually know where your member, the one that you hired or that you may soon fire. I just want to tell you where I'm at on it. We voted absolutely no. We voted absolutely no. We voted absolutely no. Absolutely no. Absolutely no. It's a very different time. There are very little rules. There's a 958-page bill that was literally a smorgasbord of over a 30-year plan. A 30-year plan, all put into one bill. It came to the House floor, and I want to tell you that I spent 27 hours on that floor with no pillow, watching this horrible miscarriage of justice begin. I mean, in the wee nights, there are mice, young people in the dome. When you come to DC, I'll show you. We lost by one vote the first time that the bill was presented in front of the House. One vote. So when we want to talk about the margin, one vote. We could have stopped it. We lost by one vote. It went to the Senate, that big, beautiful, ugly bill, and the Senate made it worse and then brought it back to the House. We don't have the numbers, so many of you have been asking and saying, Lateefah, why don't you stop him? I would love to stop this horrible, horrible work happening. When we say elections have consequences, they absolutely do. When we are in the minority in the House, if we are in the minority in the Senate, if we have lost the presidency, and some would say the judiciary, it's tough to fight, but that doesn't mean we stop fighting. I want to be clear about that so you know where we are. I'm on the Oversight Committee, one of the most powerful committees in the United States Congress. We do not have subpoena power. Democrats do not have subpoena power. We can't call any more than one witness at a hearing. That is why the intensity of the way in which you need me to work, I hope that I am doing you proud. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we've done and what this bill will do and why the fight has to feel visceral. Why California can't just continue to say, well, that's unfair. We need to fight like hell with all that we have. We will fight fire with fire, and we will win in November. There will be a special election, and I will organize every single day until we get to that special election so we can fight these bastards. I'll tell you what it will do. 17 million people, this is the Congressional Budget Office has estimated, not some partisan group, will lose their health care by 2024. In the bill, it was passed and signed on the 4th of July when the President of the United States will strip nutrition assistance from more than 2 million households. Right now, poor folks who are on SNAP, or we call it food stamps back in the days, they currently get $6 a day, right? No one's having tons of sirloin, like reported, on $6 a day. That allotment will be almost cut in half for poor households. It will defund Planned Parenthood, including Planned Parenthoods in our district. Our district is called Planned Parenthood. Over 7 of those Planned Parenthoods will close. Planned Parenthood is not just an abortion provider. Less than 10% of the work that they do is abortion services. A majority of the work that Planned Parenthood does is straight up health care for young people and women, especially those fighting cervical cancer and those who are deciding how to build their families. They provide first kind health care, including, the number one prescription that Planned Parenthood puts out, anybody want to guess what it is? Not contraception, the sit-up pill. Women all over the country go to Planned Parenthood as their first step to health care. They're dealing with blood pressure, cervical cancer, and of course they're doing reproductive health work. This wasn't about abortion, it wasn't about health care. The defunding of Planned Parenthood was a war on women. Within the bill scape and the appropriations bill that soon followed, that I of course voted no on, this administration will pour an additional, and hear me out, 19% in excess of what we have to Homeland Security and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Act. That is a surge. That amounts to, listen to this, $150 billion, expanding the power to tear apart families, immigrant families, those who are desperately seeking asylum, including those who are going to court and following the rules. Those resources will not only continue to tear apart families, they are hiring 10,000 additional ICE agents to be on the streets of cities and rural places around the country. I voted, like I said, every single opportunity against this craziness, and I'll continue to do that. One of the things that was really important to me, I ran a number of organizations before I came to Congress. I ran an organization for over a decade called the Young Women's Freedom Center. I worked with thousands of young girls in the criminal and juvenile and foster care systems. And one of the things that we knew was that we could stop any criminal activity by supporting jobs and housing, sometimes dental care, unification with their children. Like, these things are not rocket science. Oftentimes, people who are elected have actually never done the work. They've never had to bring together pieces of an obituary and raise money to bury a child or stand with a mother over a grave. I have been so blessed to be able to stand with people in their most difficult times. I expanded an asylum clinic when I ran the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of the San Francisco Bay Area. I worked with a prosecutor creating reentry programs, forcing young people to believe that there was another way in another world. I've worked with violence prevention interrupters who've taken the guns out of children's hands. We've done work here, but right now, even that's not enough. We need a ferocious strategy to fight this, what I believe is really evil government. I'm African American. A lot of folks have asked, well, what's the demography of your staff? Our demography of our staff is the demography of this district. Right? We have 150 languages that are spoken in this district. Our materials, our staff are multilingual, and they really look like all of us. So I'm extremely proud of that. Young people, we would encourage you to apply for our internships, and yes, they are paid. Not just trying to be on the local news or the national news. We want to work. We want to actually create a shift in material conditions of real people in this moment. We returned over $1.7 million in Social Security and IRS benefits. I gotta give up to the team for that. Folks told me that we weren't going to get anything done, and by the measure of how many folks are still struggling, I still feel like we have so much more to do. But in 7 months, we returned over $150 million back to our district, not just to residents. We brought $150 million back for research, for new housing construction, for education, and for community enrichment and culture, and we will continue to do that. There's not a phone call that I won't make on behalf of this district to get our money. You are paying billions of dollars in federal taxes. So when they say that they're gonna shut down a research lab that's gonna cure ALS or sickle cell disease or cure hematological diseases like the one that shifted my family's life, we're gonna fight like hell to get that money back. There will be questions that we don't answer, and we have our communications team here as well. We'll work with you to get those questions answered.
Tell us more about you. Tell us more about so far. Well, listen now, it's 6:30.
Let me address that.
You're talking about what herself.
Well, why I want to do that? No. I'm good. Why it's important for me to do that is because you need to know why I'm doing the work, the way in which I want to work, because you have many members who were born into a very different situation that I wasn't, so the way that I approach the work is as a disabled Black woman with today.
Thank you, Lateefah. Just very briefly, because we are all here to listen to you and to hear all of your questions and concerns. My name is Nikki Fortunato-Bass. I am your newly elected supervisor of the County Board of Supervisors. I started in January. I spent the past 6 years serving on the Albany City Council, and before that was an organizer and spent time organizing Lateefah. I have my staff here, Elisa Cosme, and we are here to serve you. The county is the social safety net. We administer health care, food assistance, we support child care. There is a lot that I could say about what we are doing, but I really want to give this time to you to talk with your Congresswoman, and I want you to know we are working very closely together. We are very aligned to make sure that the county shores up those who will lose their health care access, who will lose food security, those who are a threat of detention and deportation. And thank you. The first line I saw when I came in at the City Hall was the welcome Sanctuary City. And that is really important to me because I am doing the fight in the county to protect our most vulnerable community that I chair. That's a perfect segue into the questions that we're seeing a lot of right now. We have people asking, I'm worried about ICE and National Guard coming to Oakland. What should we do? And what can we do to support our immigrant community?
You guys, it's a really scary time. It is a really scary time. We are holding on for dear life, our immigrant brothers and sisters. And I just came from Washington, D.C. a couple of days ago, and we saw 40 tanks on the freeway for the militarization of the city. It's extremely what's happening. And so, on a very serious note, we are trying to legislate in a very dark time. I was a co-sponsor, which means for some of the folks who are learning about this process, being a co-author on a bill that we believe indicates bipartisan support. We're going to keep pushing, and it's called Stop ICE from Kidnapping U.S. Citizens Act. Point of the legislation. We know that this administration is breaking the law every single day, but it would be to prohibit ICE from snatching U.S. citizens off the streets and then deporting them. And then the second bill that we're working really hard, and that means we're being on the phone every single day, showing up at offices, both district offices and in D.C., the No Secret Police Act, which is extremely important. And this piece of legislation would require law enforcement officers and DHS, those agents, both institutions engaged in immigration enforcement, to clearly display their IDs. Again, yesterday I was with attorney Rob Bonta. My office is working with Rob Bonta and litigation actors, including nonprofit organizations that have really developed a national coalition. There are over 300 plus active cases challenging this administration to honor the Constitution. So there are 3 ways that I believe, again, it has to be day by day. In terms of the strategy, yes, we can continue to try to legislate in this very dark space, right? Again, calling a spade is a very difficult terrain, but to legislate, to continue to introduce these bills, get support from these bills, organize for these bills. We also, because this is a lawless administration, we need to sue the hell out of the Trump administration every single day. We can't say that until we figure out how to win and stop this, that our votes won't be damaged. We have people in what we believe are internment camps. And this country has a history of interning people that we hate, who get no legal representation. So those of us who are extremely worried about the civil rights work that is happening would be happy, again, to spread the information that we have on ways that you can get involved. But the third strategy, so I talked about litigation, I talked about legislation, but exactly what we're doing here, the movement building that is happening, if we do not have a durable movement of folks who are willing to get out into the streets and to
call every single day. Call your Republican senator, your Republican members of Congress. They're the problem, right? And also call your members of your family who voted the wrong way and who are now too seeing that they're out of work and the people that their children go to school with are being deported, right? So the imperfectness of the Democratic Party, we are in unison in saying that we need to stop this craziness. Let's hold on to our folks. Particularly, there are ways I can talk about that at the end, and other members of community organizations you all should talk. We should be bearing witness. Some of us are going to immigration court and standing arm in arm with our brothers and sisters facing deportation. Let's bear witness. The only way that we will be able to physically see the draconian nature of these policies if we stand with our folks who have the most to lose.
What do you think about redistricting? What's the plan? And what are ways that we can help the city?
What's happening in Texas? If I were to tell you that there was a country where the President of the United States, because they know that they're going to lose the midterms, when you take away healthcare from 17 million people and you have Republican farmers and their soybeans are rotting because you cut off their contracts with USAID. In fact, you killed USAID. Your plans are not going as anticipated. And so folks who may not be super progressive, they're realizing that these antics actually are keeping them poor. The majority of folks, literally over 50% of the folks in this country who use food stamps are white and poor, right? They try to stick it to low-income poor people with children, but in fact are hurting the tapestry of the country. So the tide is changing, the stats are changing. So step back and imagine that the President of the United States or any other country called the governor and said, you know what, I need 5 seats, do what you want. And then members of the opposition party decided, you know what, when this comes to vote in the State House, we're gonna lead because you need more to move this thing forward. And imagine that same government, after these folks leave the state, send the FBI or the equivalent to arrest them by civil warrants. Imagine the same government, both the governor and the President of the United States, then move to remove them from their duly elected offices. You would say, well, that's not a democratic government exactly. Well, that's what's happening in Texas. It won't stop in Texas. We just got word today that Louisiana is thinking about drawing lines. So I don't think California wants to initially shift, even if it's only 4 or 5 years to 30. We don't want to shift the way that we do business, but we don't have a choice. So what you will see on the ballot in November, and some of us need to work hell or high water to make sure it gets to the ballot, unlike Texas, where they're just going to move it through their Republican legislature. We're going to ask the voters, can we in fact fight back? You all are in high school. Can you imagine a basketball team? You have one team that continues to break the rules every single day, go against the code of conduct. The referee doesn't care. The referee has lost all of their values. And we just are standing as parents on the side and we're saying, well, that's not fair. At some point, we have to tell Team B who keeps getting punched in the face, let's create a strategy where we can be in our values and win for the sake of our folks. And that's where we are as California. We have to fight fire with fire because it's not just about redistricting. I want you to understand this. It's about literally saving the republic. Taking people off the streets, ripping children away from their parents, not investing in a criminal justice system or an immigration system that's actually going to work and that's efficacious. The point is cruelty. So California should in fact lead the way. It is going to be an extremely expensive route to get this to ballot. But you know what's more expensive? That child right now at Children's Hospital who's been kicked out of a clinical trial to save her life because the Trump administration cut the NIH grant for her clinical trial. You know, that's expensive. It's expensive when we have an immigration system that doesn't see people as human. It's expensive to spend billions of dollars to send bombs to kill kids. Hopefully I will do my best on my
campaign side. I have a campaign website and I also have a official website, but taking off my official hat, I'm gonna work like hell to save this republic. I'm gonna work like hell to save this republic. I'm gonna work like hell to save this republic. I'm gonna work like hell to save this republic. Save this republic. Save this republic. Save this republic. Save this republic.